All right, I want to call to order the special St. John Sanitary District meeting for March 23rd. Let's recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I also see Patty is back online. Can we get a roll call, please?
Kim.
Here.
Richard Setlak.
Here.
Patricia Sims-Samerchek.
Here.
Robert Kometz.
Here.
Ken Gambala is absent. Attorney Westland.
Present.
And Mr. Pondinas.
Present.
Okay, so seeing there's no minutes to approve, we'll move to item number 5, new business. Consider the settlement with LBL Development and BLB St. John. Is there any comments on this?
I don't have anything. Fine with me.
Okay, I'll start. I did have a couple of comments on this, in as far as the terms in paragraphs number 2 and 5, where it dictates hardy board and smart side siding specifically. I'm really not comfortable with the town dictating what manufacturer and supplier is chosen for this. We were able to put other masonry products. We didn't specifically label a specific type of brick or manufacturer of brick, so I don't know why the town would want to enter into an agreement like that. Does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I have a few questions relative, expanding on that a little bit. On item number, let me see. Item number 11, we're requesting the privacy fence. And item number 11, we don't mandate what type of fence it is, but for the homeowners, we mandate that they have a wrought iron fence, an in-ground pool, things of that nature. And a lot of these items, such as the siding, would fall more under a homeowners association covenant agreement. Because if we hold this builder or this developer to these standards, and we don't hold all the other developers to the same standards, are we opening ourselves for litigation? Such as, why do we not require Althoff to have the same standards as we're requiring this developer?
That's a good point.
That's my concern, and the same thing with mandating in-ground pools. This is not the arena that we should have this listed. This is a homeowners association covenant issue. Any thoughts?
That's a good point. That does the town ordinance specifically state a type of pool? I think that's more on the developer to state in their restrictive covenants. I know in my subdivision it is.
Yeah, mine it is as well. But again, it enhances the existing town ordinance. But the town ordinance is written for all the developers. Why is it different for this developer, these mandates? And are we opening ourselves to litigation when we don't require all the other developers in town to have the same requirements? And if we're going to require the homeowners to have a wrought iron fence, but we don't mandate what type of fence BLB has to install for their privacy fence, I just have some issues on that.
David, you care to chime in?
Sure. With regard to the fence, you wouldn't install a privacy fence as a wrought iron fence. All the wrought iron fences I know are slatted. The purpose of a privacy fence is for, in this instance, it was so the Green Acres subdivision was separated from the 108 acre property. that was an item that was added sort of late in the negotiations, and I would say it was a result of one of the folks from the Green Acres subdivision appearing at a town council meeting and asking about that because it was a topic that had been talked about historically, and Mr. Lawton agreed to put that in there. With regard to the building requirements and restrictions, you know, there's really not an issue with regard to some sort of precedential value with other developments. This is going to be a PUD, which means that you can write your own, that there's a negotiation between the developer and the town as to what it means that they do. A PUD means the ordinance, the St. John ordinance by itself does not capture what the parties agree are best for the development of this particular parcel. So in every PUD, there's a give and take between the developer and the town as far as what some of the building requirements are, specifically with regard to lot depth, you know, and other items. Mr. Lawton has agreed with regard to 14A through K to those additional requirements. That's going to be part of that PUD, and that will be an ordinance of the town. I suppose if another developer comes in and says, listen, I want to do a PUD and I want to have minimum width of 70 feet instead of the typical square footage that you would have in a lot, that the town planning commission and council would push back on those and as well and say, all right, well, if you're going to do that, you know, here are some other requirements. And that's the whole nature of a PUD process. So with regard to precedential value and exposure with other developers, that's not an issue. I know Rob and I talked for a while about the Hardy Board Smart Board in paragraph 2 and again 14. I think with regard to that, I just go on record and say those items aren't capitalized to specify a product, but rather a style. And even in paragraph 14, it talks about no vinyl siding. So I think, you know, we talked about different alternatives of the way that could have been worded. And certainly that item was something that Mr. Lawton kind of trumpeted as something he was giving into the town and agreeing to that, and certainly something that the town wanted. I know, you know, Mr. Panzik's no longer on the council, but he was a big driving force in wanting no vinyl siding. So I would tell you, if you get less specific with regard to those two paragraphs, you're opening up further consternation later on with, you know, does whatever he's meeting meet the terms of what we're trying to accomplish? And I think the more specific is probably a better option with regard to this, the history of this particular document and the relationship with this particular developer over time has been somewhat tortured, and which predates, I think, probably all of us. But leaving that specific, I think, is not. It's certainly a judgment call, and in the judgment of the council, who's already approved the settlement agreement, that those are items that they want.
Okay, well, one other point of clarification. I am fully aware that a privacy fence would not be wrought iron. My question was, it was very specific about in item number 14, the type of fencing Whereas the privacy fence that he's required to put up, we left that open to swing in the wind. I was just found that odd that there was a two-sided coin there. And from what you're saying, that this document acts as a PUD, this will prohibit any other developer from challenging the town of St. John or Lawton, or BLB, I should say, going forward. BLB cannot come back to us and state we are not enforcing such strict rules in other areas of town, but we are for him because he has agreed to this. Is that what you're saying? We're trying to protect the liability and the exposure of the town.
Yeah, and I get that, but I'm not sure. I want to answer your question, but I'm not sure the second part of it I understood.
Well,
Are you asking if BLB can challenge this, or are you asking if another developer can challenge?
no, if BLB can challenge this because we don't require any other developer to hold to these high strict standards, and believe me, these standards are wonderful. I wish the entire town would be like this. But we don't want any exposure for the town of St. John going forward to end up back in court if they're legally challenged by BLB again.
No. So the answer to your question is no. BLB couldn't challenge what we do with another developer. A PUD, first off, another developer would only be held to the standards that you have in your zoning ordinance. But if they wanted to do a PUD such that they wanted to limit lot sizes and things like that don't fall within the standard categories of your PUD, there would again be a negotiation which would be based on the particulars of the property in question that is being talked about. So when you're looking at PUDs like this one, there's no precedential value from one to another. Although I will tell you, the next developer that comes in, and if he says, listen, I want to do a minimum width of 70 feet and a depth of 140 and 8-foot side yards, a good place for the town to start with him would be, all right, we may consider that, but here's what we've done in the past, and you're going to have to meet this, right? If you're going to vary from our typical ordinance. So it's not a situation where BLB can use it as a liability of the town, but it is a situation where the town can say to a future developer, hey, listen, in fairness, we have to stay within the realm of this.
And that new developer would not be able to legally challenge the town relative to that.
No, because the answer would be, if you don't like it, follow our regular zoning ordinance. And there's not a darn thing, if they would just follow the regular zoning ordinance, there's not a darn thing the town can do about it. Now, the good news and bad news with that is that the good news would be they'd be much larger lots, right? But you wouldn't be able to hold them to some of these other items.
Okay, and then I just have one other point. Item number 16 for the bike trail, stating that, BLB shall construct the bike trail. There's no time mandate there. Is there an allowable time mandate? Or is it just open for whenever he decides to put it in?
That's a good point. It is open. Whenever an item like that is open, this is another item that just was added towards the end of the negotiation. And I think, Wayne, did you have any discussions with him as far as when he was planning on doing that?
No, I know he wants to put the bike trail in, but there was no time that I can recall when it was going to get done.
Yes, my concern is that there is no time mandate on this, so if he decides he wants to put it in 5 years from now, then what can we do about that?
Well, I think all of your paragraphs, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 are all triggered from this replacement property, which is talked about in paragraph 13. I would tell you that I think any court, and you would hope that you wouldn't be in front of a judge, but any judge would tell you it would be a reasonable time and it would be triggered from the replacement property being annexed in paragraph 13. So I don't know, is that 3 years from now? It certainly could be.
We really don't know, though.
No.
Yeah, going forward, I would just like to have this cleaned up a little bit because too much is open for speculation. And Attorney Westland, you bring up some good points on presumptions, but we know, given the fact that this went through the appellate court up to that, we can't deal on presumptions. Just my personal thought.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? All right, well, seeing that there's no more questions, I guess we can vote to consider the settlement with LBL Development and BLB St. John. Jason, can you do a roll call?
Well,
Don't you need a motion?
You do.
Oh, yes.
You need a motion to either approve or
Yes, so-
deny it.
Can I get a motion to approve the settlement with LBL Development and BLB St. John? All right, nobody, we don't have a motion on the floor.
Oh, I'll go ahead and make that motion. To approve the settlement as presented.
Can I get a second? Any seconds? All right, well, seeing that there's no second on the motion, in a circumstance like this, do we ask for a motion to deny it, or do we just leave it go as the motion doesn't pass?
So, yeah, Rob, the motion dies for lack of a second.
Okay.
You can either take any other motions, which would be a motion to deny it, or you can just move on your agenda, which is reports and then public comment and adjournments.
Okay,
Rob,
right.
I'd like to make a motion to defer this until our next meeting. And if nothing else, I'd like to have the verbiage in item number 16 cleaned up with an expiration date, and not just presume that it's linked to number 13.
Okay,
So I would feel more comfortable. It's gone on this long. Our meeting is in a few weeks. I would prefer to have this verbiage cleaned up a little bit. So I'd make a motion to defer until our next meeting to have this cleaned up.
okay, can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Jason, can we get a roll call?
I just want to, I know you didn't call for discussion, Rob, but in order to clean up the verbiage, just so everybody understands, this is going to have to go, the verbiage would have to be changed, and then it's got to go back to the council for approval and back to Mr. Lott.
Okay, well, I mean, the original motion didn't pass.
No, I
So-
know. I just want you to understand that that's what you're, that's what you're asking it sounds simple to change the verbiage, right? But I got other entities that have to get that approved as well.
Okay, I understand. So we have a motion on the floor to table this discussion and a possible change in verbiage to an actual date for paragraph number
16.
16. So let's go ahead and take that roll call vote.
Kim Kroll,
Yes.
Richard Setlick,
I'll say no.
Patricia Sims Summerchick,
Yes.
Robert Kometz.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-1 and 1 abstention.
Okay, so we'll move on. No reports and correspondence. Public comment?
There is no one in the room.
Okay, seeing there's no public comment, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Kim Kroll,
Yes.
Richard Setlick,
Yes?
Patricia Sims Summerchick,
Yes.
Robert Kometz.
Yes. All right, motion is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.